All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Speaking of Jazz. Tonight, my guest is somebody who I've known for a very, very long time. But don't worry, he's still really cool, despite having been, associated with me for such a long time. Patrick Booth is a saxophonist, composer, and educator based in the beautiful Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He's currently an adjunct professor of saxophone, small ensembles director at Michigan Tech University, and he is a dynamic performer in both improvised music and also classical settings. He holds degrees in classical saxophone and education from Central Michigan University, where he studied with John Nichol, and graduate degree in improvisation from the University of Michigan, where he studied with the late legendary Geri Allen, Andrew Bishop, and Ellen Rowe. He's been featured as a performer and teacher with Wadada Leo Smith and David Liebman, as well as leading his own ensembles all over the Midwest and the East Coast. He's performed with Geri Allen, Wadada Leo Smith, Dave Liebman, Ingrid Laubrock, Brad Linde, and a whole host of others. He's been featured on many recordings, including several as a leader, and we'll talk about one of those recordings, his most recent, called Stillness, tonight. He is a proud endorser of Consumer saxophones and Cusack music electronics. And we're probably going to have a conversation about that part because he just got not only a new saxophone that I'm really excited for him about, but just a whole host of other things. Anyway, please put your virtual hands together for Mr. Patrick Booth. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Jordan. Good. How are you?
Hey, it's really, really great to see you. It's great to be talking to you. I could not be more excited to kind of have you on tonight. To start off, I'm wondering if you might be able to tell us about your background and why improvised music, why classical music, what's the point? Like, why is this a path that you felt the need to choose?
Sure. Oh, jumping right in. Man, I had a great band director when I was in high school. I grew up in Michigan. I grew up in a small town right in the center of the Lower Peninsula called Ithaca. It's right on 127. Everybody's driven past it and probably gotten gas at one of our many gas stations. But it's a small town of 3,000 people. And I had a great band director when I started. His name was Bob Christ, and we lost him at the beginning of the pandemic. So, the late, great Bob Christ at this point. But he really instilled in me a love for music and a love for practicing. I shouldn't say that I didn't practice. He tried to instill in me the love of practice when I was in high school. But he instilled in me the love of music, and he never really pushed me to be the best, but he pushed me to always find joy in what it is that I was doing. And I feel like that's really where sort of my musicality began to blossom is looking at it from that perspective versus the perspective of like a dynamic performer and a virtuosic technician. It was simply to have a good sound and to find joy in what it is that I do. So I wanted to be band director just like Bob. And so I went to Central, where I studied with Jordan can probably attest with this. In my opinion, the best saxophone professor in the world. Especially for an undergraduate student, there is no better place on this earth than Central Michigan University, studying under the tutelage of John Nichol. I believed it then, I believe it now. So I was fortunate enough to go there, and that's where I met Jordan. And through that process, I began to love practicing the instrument and realized that, yes, I wanted to teach, but I was not ready to give up my love of playing the instrument when I got out of college. So I decided to pursue improvised music and pursue the Black American music lineage, and was fortunate enough to go to the University of Michigan for a master's degree in improvisation, where I studied with my second favorite saxophone professor in the world, Andrew Bishop. Not that it's a competition, guys, if you're listening. But that opened my mind, my heart, my ears to an entirely different life that I did not know was possible. And that was through the work of Ed Sereth, through the work of Ellen Rowe, through the work of Andrew Bishop, through the work of the great Geri Allen. I did not know about I did not know about the music that I play today, and the music that I write today, the music I listen to today. I did not know about it until my time at the University of Michigan. And it started, I can remember vividly. It was the second week of school, my first semester, and the Chicago Underground Duo came and did a master class and a performance. And that was the first time I had ever heard open improvisation or free improvisation. And I realized right then that that is what I wanted to do. And it's, you know, still to this day, that's some of my favorite music. And that's the Chicago Underground Duo. That's Rob Mazurek, who's a cornetist, and Chad Taylor, who's a drummer. And they played a few different instruments each, some world instruments from all over, and then their primary respective instruments. So that was really when my love for open improvisation started. And then it was through classes at U of M. It was working with Ed Sereth, and it was working with Mark Kirschman in the Creative Arts Orchestra. I was at school at a very, very good time because we got to go a lot of places. So that's how it started. That was like the birth of sort of where I'm at today, you know, with a lot of things that I'm sure we're going to talk about more in depth as this conversation rolls. But yeah, that's really how it started, and that's kind of where I'm at today, you know. But it's a weird time to be a musician right now. It's a weird time to be a creative artist. It's a weird time to be a young dad. You know, there's a lot going on in the world right now that might be more important, you know, than me sitting in my basement, you know, playing notes. So, you know, there's a lot that there's many things that I personally am dealing with the state of the world, yeah, and the state of the environment. And I always thought that I could do it with my music, and I feel like I can, and I feel like we all can, but I feel like our philosophy of what our music is has to change. And I feel like it is changing, which is very, very good.
Yeah.
That was a loaded answer right there. Sorry.
Yeah, it was. No, that's cool. That's cool. You know, if it gets real, it gets real, you know, and I would have it no other way, you know, and I know you. So I would not have invited you on if I didn't want it to go in that very Patrick Booth kind of direction. So let's talk for a second about open improvisation. What is it that makes and, you know, made and, you know, back then and makes you now you gravitate to that particular part of the Black American musical lineage as opposed to, you know, what people might consider to be a more, and notice, mainstream kind of, because I hate that term, but I also can't, like, yeah. What makes it, what is it about open improvisation that draws you in?
Well, to start, the first thing that drew me in initially was the idea that I could play all of the wrong notes that I was used to playing over changes, and they wouldn't be wrong anymore. Because change playing was always difficult for me. And so that was never like a strong suit for me. And here I am studying improvisation and studying, the standards and studying the canon, studying the great songbook. And I'm like, man, I can't. What? Cherokee? Can I play it as a ballad, please? And then, since then it's just become a part of my, again, a part of my voice. But that's what initially drew me to open improvisation. And then it was really Geri. So when I was in my second semester of school at Michigan, Geri took us on a wild project, which was a 3-parter. So we were studying the original blues. So we were studying, I think she gave us even a date. It was like before 1908. It's like anything before 1908, we'll study. Anything after, we won't. And so I was studying Blind Lemon Jefferson, Lead Belly, obviously Robert Johnson, many people. And she just wanted us to listen to it because that's music that a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with, for how important it was to where we are today. So she had us studying an artist of our choosing, and then we had to do a transcription of an artist of her choosing. So like she gave me 3 other tenor saxophone players. So I was transcribing Dewey Redman all semester, who quickly became one of my favorites, and then writing a tune, and then arranging and transcribing this blues song of our choosing. And so I did Eagle-Eyed Mama by Blind Lemon Jefferson, and I had a really hard time because at that point I knew what the blues was. I was studying improvisation at the graduate level. I obviously knew what a 12-bar blues was. Thank you. And then, Geri was like, okay, here, transcribe this and tell me what the form is. And I couldn't even figure out what key it was in, because it didn't start on the 1 chord. It never went to the 4 chord. There was some 5. It never repeated, but you could tell it was the blues. And that is when I realized, I said, oh, so this music that we have standardized for an educational purpose so that we can then teach it in like a rudimentary way, it started as an open display of emotion, an open display of joy, an open display of hurt and pain, and an open display of an artist's life. And that's when I realized, like, oh, this didn't start with what we always perceive as Ornette Coleman. It started way before that. It's really the impetus for what Louis Armstrong did. It's really the impetus for Charlie Parker, the impetus for John Coltrane, the impetus for all of this stuff came out of this initial struggle. And when I realized that, it opened my mind to what open improvisation is, and that it is not simply, oh, you just don't get to play the change. You don't have to play the changes. It's more of like for me, it became a way of life. That for me is how I view open improvisation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's such a beautiful view of the music, because I think there are a lot of people out there who are like, oh, so this is just where I get to like play whatever I want and like ignore, and I don't have to like play changes and whatever. And no, that's I mean, that's where it's at, the way of life thing.
You tell me Ornette Coleman didn't play changes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They just may not have been written down, but he was playing changes.
Oh, he sure was. Oh, he absolutely was. I think Professor Allen really had that effect on people in terms of like blowing what you think is, about the world, and, taking that and just blowing it wide open. Yeah.
She's still the most incredible performer I've ever seen in my life.
Agreed. 100%. Like,
Like just
absolutely.
yeah.
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 So when you're studying this music, how do you practice that then? How do you practice for open improvisation? What I mean, because if it's all, I'm being facetious here, but like, if it's all completely open, then how do you practice something that's completely open? Like, what's your approach there?
Playing melodies.
Hmm.
You know, playing melodies. You know, I mean, thinking about it, like thinking about everything as a sound. So, you know, I'm thinking about, and this is all, it changes every day. You know, I don't have a systematic approach, um, because as soon as you have a systematic approach, it's not really open anymore. Um, you know, then it just becomes, you know, you're running through the list. So for me, the way that I view it is like in my practice is, this is, I think the first time I heard this was Chris Potter. You know, Chris Potter said, somebody asked him like, "Oh, what do you practice?" And he's like, everybody knows exactly what I practice. You know, like everybody knows exactly what I practice because I
Yeah.
practice all of the things that people have said. You know, I practice my long tones, I practice my scales, I practice my thing, whatever. He said, but what people don't know is that I always start with improvising. This is also something Geri told us to do. Always start with improvising.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I
so,
remember that.
yeah. So Chris Potter said, I always start with improvising, and I improvise until I find something that I cannot do on the instrument. And that's what I practiced that day. Hard for me to believe that he just doesn't improvise forever, you know, and just not able to find anything that he can't do on the saxophone. But you know what? Every time you hear him on a record, he gets better and better. And I hate him more and more for it. You know, I love Chris Potter, and I hate to say that. You know, I'm a total fanboy because he's just an um, absolute wealth of ability. So I sort of took that approach when like I took that approach into my practice, and I just try to think differently every day about something. Like sometimes it's just as simple as like thinking about a story and trying to portray that story through sound. You know, um, that's been like a brooding method for me for a long time. You know, that's really how stillness came to be. Part of what came to be with stillness was this idea of like, can I put my life and my surroundings and my love for this area, can I put it into a way um, that is 100% sound based? Can I do that? And have it not be a show of technicality? Can it not be a show of what I'm practicing? Because I never want people to be like, oh, you've been practicing your whole tone patterns. You know, I don't, you know, I hope that, you know, if you hear that, it means I probably haven't been practicing enough. Um, but you know, that's really how stillness came to be. Um, one of the reasons stillness came to be.
That's great. I'm really glad that you took us there because I was going to go there anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was like a beautiful segue. So when we were talking about my record, and I was talking to you about like, yeah, what do you listen for when you choose takes, and how do you even get into that, that space? Um, you mentioned like, dude, just don't be that guy who's like, I'm choosing the most virtuosic take, because that's not gonna like necessarily like mean anything. And then I think you told me about like your process for choosing takes for stillness, and you mentioned like, yeah, I'm listening to like the rest of the band and where the rest of the band, sounds, assertive and sounds at their best, and I'm listening to when the rest of the band is just getting it, and for those special moments of like unexpected clarity,
Mhm.
that you find. And when I listen to Stillness, I hear a lot of that. You know, when I listen to this record, I hear like a lot of like it is like a portrait of tranquility, like this beautiful kind of tranquility, even in the more like, I don't want to say aggressive because that's not necessarily the right. You know what I mean, though.
I do know what you mean.
Okay, good, thanks. So can you talk more about the record and kind of give people an insight into the specific parts of your life and that you were trying to kind of portray, and also, you know, you live in the Upper Peninsula now, and maybe you could talk about the Upper Peninsula's kind of relationship to the record.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I'd love to. Love it. I'm still proud of the record, which doesn't always happen. You know, the record Stillness is about my life in the Upper Peninsula. So I've been here since 2015, and I didn't really spend much time here as an adolescent. Didn't spend any time here as an adult, you know, just a weekend here or there, you know. And I had spent, before moving to Marquette, I had spent a single day here. And it was enough time for me to stop at the beach, throw my Frisbee for my dog, who would not go get it. So I had to wait out in the water, which was very cold, to get this stupid Frisbee. And then I got maybe one of the worst coffee drinks of my life from a place that'll remain nameless. And then I went to the Walmart. That's all I did in Marquette. That's it. And so before I moved here, I was living in the Traverse City area, Sutton's Bay to be specific. And it was time for a change. I had been there for 3 years with my wife, Emily, and it was time for a change. And so the opportunity presented itself for us to possibly move here. So we drove up for an interview for Emily. My wife, Emily, is a middle school band director here in Marquette. She's amazing at what she does. I could never, anybody who has middle schoolers out there, anybody who survived raising a middle schooler, more power to you. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do in 13 years. I don't know. But so we, hey man, it's getting real. You know, we came up for her interview, and it was in May, and there was snow and ice on the lake, and it was rainy and awful. And we drank beer at Black Rocks, which is an incredible brewery. They do amazing work in the community. They're just in pillars of Marquette. Amazing people. And then we ate Thai food at this place called the Rice Paddy. And Oi, who cooks all the food at the Rice Paddy, is amazing. Also a pillar in the community. And she makes incredible Thai food. And it's very cheap. And you get belittled just a little bit every time you go in, because she always remembers you.
Doing it right. Yeah,
it's exactly right, man.
Oh yeah.
She remembers the last time you were in, and I can guarantee you that it was too long ago. So she calls everybody boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yep.
She's the best.
Love it.
And then we went back to our hotel room and we ate this incredible Thai food, drank beer, and we're like, why not? You know, why not move here? So we moved here, and very quickly, it sank its teeth. You know, it sank its jaws into us really, really hard. It's like no other place in Michigan. You know, the northern coast. You know, the north coast of Michigan, Lake Superior coast is like, there's nothing like it. And I found myself at the lake every day. You know, even though I had come from a place that was on Lake Michigan and so beautiful, and it looks like the Caribbean, and And, Lake Superior doesn't look like the Caribbean. Lake Superior looks like it'll kill you. And it does. And there's power in that, and there's beauty in that. And you can't really take it for granted up here. There's a force, Mother Superior, Gitchagumi, there is a force there that is unmatched among anything else in the world. And I felt that. And I started realizing that, like, oh, this is starting to affect the way that I'm playing. It's starting to affect my attitude towards other people. It's starting to affect the way that I view the world. It's starting to affect everything in my life, all in good ways. Like, it made me slow down. It made me be patient, which is something that my teachers have always said. You just have to be patient. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know I have to be patient, but like, let's be famous first, and that's just not what it's about. And so moving here really made me check my ego, which I always thought I did. I didn't. Really made me check my ego and understand how my surroundings can affect my art. And so stillness came out of that. It came out of the beauty of Lake Superior. It came out of the beauty of the forests. It came out of the beauty of the people here. And that is something that I never really expected. And that's really what the record is about. The record is an homage to Lake Superior and an homage to the Upper Peninsula, but it's an homage to the people, because the way that the music is presented, the way that the music was written, was from this idea of collective approach. So the people of the UP, there's many different backgrounds here. There's many different viewpoints. There's many different, just like everywhere else, there's many different political viewpoints. There's viewpoints on many issues affecting our country and our world here. They're all present. I happen to be in a very nice place. But that being said, nobody cares. Okay? And what I mean by that is, I don't mean people don't care about what's happening in the world, because we care as much as everyone else. But we care more about our community and making sure that everyone is safe, no matter what. So, if someone is stuck on the side of the road with a burning car, you stop and help them. It doesn't matter what the stickers on the back of their car say. If they're in distress, we do what we need to do to help them. You don't have to agree, and you usually don't. But it's important that we stay as a collective approach, because the UP is a hard place to make a living. It's hard to survive here. And the people who do have sacrificed a lot. There's a lot of sacrifice that has to go on in order to make a living here. And so that really affected the way that the music was written and the way that the music was recorded and performed. And so, I talked about not playing the changes. And I play open improvisation. Stillness is written, all of the songs are written out from start to finish. There are no, it was never the same twice, right? So it's like from start to finish, everything is fully composed. And then the sections that are improvised, there's nothing there. And so it's more about getting into the music itself. So like when we start doing, there's a piece on there that was about sitting by a waterfall, sitting by the Dead River Falls right here in Marquette. Everybody in the band visualizes that. They visualize sitting next to a waterfall and understanding how the cascading waters change direction and how they change speed and how they change the force around them. And so when you listen to it, you should be able to hear that. When you listen to Fields of Snow, you should be able to sense what that feels like, how we approach weather and nature and things like that. And so that's sort of how the whole music was written, and it's also how we performed it, and how we recorded it. We recorded it in one room, no sound booths, no headphones. Not the easiest recording scenario. To be like, all right, cool, just like you just have to hear everything, and if you don't hear it, you don't get to hear it. I don't know what to tell you. And so it was really like a very intense weekend of recording. But we didn't and I still sort of stand by this. The first time I did this was with my band Sonic Perfume, which is based in Toronto, Canada. Phil Albert, my soulmate, bass player, lives in British Columbia now. We did a recording session, and the engineer, we got sounds, and the engineer's like, cool, do a take. And then do you want to listen to it? And the whole band's like, yeah, let's make sure we got everything. And Phil just said, no, I'm good. And we were all like, man, what if it sounds bad? He goes, if it sounds bad, we shouldn't be here. And that is when I realized, wow, if you don't listen to it, it can't affect the next take. Okay?
Whoa. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So I did that for Stillness. I went in and I said, look, we're not going to listen. We're going to play straight through. We're going to do it in one fell swoop unless there's a mistake. And the mistake has to be my guitar broke. I don't have a reed on my saxophone. That's the mistake. If there's a mistake in the music, nope. We're just going to keep going. And so we did every tune once, took a break, every tune again, took a break, every tune again, we were done. And that was, and then we did the same thing on the second day. Instead of doing let's do 7 takes of this until we're tired, and then we'll go on to another tune, which I've done plenty of those recording sessions. And what ended up happening is it became a space. So the record became a space. It became a thing. So it's not just here's my disc. It's hopefully it becomes an experience for the listener, that they listen to it and they can understand sort of how where I live is put into that music. And there is loss in that record. The track Stillness, the title track, is about the loss of life, because we had an incredible storm in the UP with gale force winds, 25 mile an hour waves. And I'm guilty. I went out to see it. If you have winds that strong, 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and you have waves that are 30 feet high, you want to see them. You do. There's nothing that's going to stop you from going to see it. And so there I was, soaked to the bone, standing on a rock cliff watching these waves crash. And I had a barrier in front of me, and I felt safe, and I got leveled by a wave. And luckily there was land behind me. And so I stood up and I said, wow, it's time to go home. So I went home, and that night, exactly where I was, 4 people died. Or I guess, yeah, and why? Because they weren't as lucky as me. And that shook me to my core. And I wrote that tune, it's I think about it, they were strangers, and it's still that lake takes, it takes lives, and that is an amazing thing. It is the most beautiful, it's the most beautiful mass of material I've ever seen in my life. And it will stay that way, because it's not simply just beautiful to the eye, it's beautiful to the mind. And there's power there that's enrapturing, just PSA for everybody. If there's 25 foot, 30 foot waves, watch a video that somebody else posts. Don't, it's not worth it, but that's what I want people to hear when they listen to Stillness. It's I want them to hear the beauty and the realness of this area.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about that band on the record for a second.
Sure.
Because you don't go in with something like that and get what you got with the record without a really special group of people. So can you introduce the band to us and tell me why, like what made you pick those musicians particularly?
Absolutely. I was Ben Rolston and Ben plays bass on the record. Ben is on my debut record, On the Shoulders of Giants. He and I went to school together, and then played on and off in different groups. And then on guitar, we have Dan Palmer, and Dan is from Traverse City and now lives in the Jackson area, teaches at a few different colleges, teaches at Hillsdale, teaches at Albion. Sorry if I'm wrong, Dan. And then Travis Ackerman plays drums, and he is from Toledo, now living in Ypsilanti. And I met Dan and Travis through working with Estar Cohen, who's a brilliant musician, vocalist, like improvising comedian. She does improvise. I don't know what it is. Improvised theater. Unbelievable. I never know if I'm in a gag with Estar, and it's really uncomfortable every time I'm with her, because she'll say something that's super deep, and I have to question if I'm in a gag. And usually I think I am, which is fine. But I met them through working with the Estar Cohen project. And right away, the first time I played with them, I knew that I wanted to write music for them. Dan's playing on guitar it's hard to explain. It's not like any other guitar player. It's incredibly emotional. I will say this about every member of that band. They are on that record and they play that music because of the humility and respect and emotion they bring to every note that they play. So, no matter what it is, everything is intentional. And they all have spent time in the UP, and so they all got it. They all understood it. Like right away, they were like, yeah, absolutely. Oh, I can feel this. I can sense this in this piece. And that's really why I picked them. I didn't, because they're amazing. They're like, it's just incredible musicians. Like, I'm very fortunate that they said yes. And I'm very fortunate that they continue to say yes. So yeah, that's how I picked the band, was simply that they are amazing at what they do. And they're just again, joy. They bring joy to every sound.
Yeah. That's something I think a lot when I hear you're playing. Just the joy of being alive, the joy of making music. And I've heard that about in your playing for a really long time, and I think that's part of what draws me to it.
Well, thanks.
Can you tell me about working with Wadada Leo Smith, who is okay.
Yeah. Can I talk to you about working with Wadada Leo Smith? Can I talk to you about it without crying? I don't know. I got a picture of him right here above me that you can't see on camera, but there's a picture. There's a saying on my computer, a little piece of paper that stares at me every day. That says, "The ability to seek possibilities. There's nothing more special than that." And that's Wadada. I met Wadada. For anybody who doesn't know, Wadada Leo Smith is a visionary composer, trumpet player, musician, philosopher, guru, whatever word you want to use for him. He is a Pulitzer-nominated composer. Yeah, I've been around forever. He is amazing. I mean, he's just amazing. He's like, makes me speechless just thinking about him. So I met him at Banff. I'm probably going to cry, Jordan. Sorry. So I met him at Banff.
Don't ever apologize for that, by the way.
Yeah. Met him at Banff 2013, Banff Center for Creativity, where they do a jazz and instrumental workshop for creative musicians. And he was on faculty there. And I was an artist. And so my first week, when he was there, I got to be in his ensemble. And I wasn't really familiar with him other than I knew that he was important. That's it. But I hadn't really dove deep into his music. And so working in his ensemble, how it works there is you're paired up. They typically let in 50 to 60 or 45 to 60 students from around the world to come and spend 3 weeks in Banff at the Banff Center. And every week you're put into a faculty-led ensemble. So my first week was with Wadada, and there were, I think, 9 of us, mixed instrumentation, and we would spend 15 minutes every rehearsal. We rehearsed with him every day for 2 hours, 15 minutes every day looking at a score of his called Taiku. And I think that's what it was. And we'd spend 15 minutes talking about it. And he has his own system of notation called encrosmation, which is a system of rhythm units and sound units. And they tell the improviser sort of how to approach the music. And it's using standard notation and encrosmation. And so for 15 minutes, he would teach us how to use and read and play encrosmation. And then the rest of the time was us working on our own music and workshopping with him, where he would give us compositional techniques and talk about just approaches to playing. So it was like very, very cool. And at the end of the week, after doing 15 to 20 minutes every day, we walked in expecting to play our music for him. And we had just, like the night before, performed with him on a club set there. They have a small basement club where we do performances, and students can do ensembles that they create to perform their music, and it gets recorded. It's super awesome. And we got to perform with Wadada. He came up and he led us in an improvisation. And the next day, the last day of our meeting, he said, "I want to play this music with you." And we're like, all right, cool. He thinks we're ready to play his piece. That's pretty cool. So we all start, and we're playing, and it's great. It's like super awesome. And like, we're super hyper focused because he's sitting right next to us. And through this whole thing, like during all of our meetings, he had never played the trumpet. And it was always sitting next to him, but he never demonstrated. He just talked us through it and let us do it. And so we're playing this piece, and it's going really well. And he tells us to go to the second page. So we go to the second page, and the first page is super intense with like a lot of melodies, a lot of rhythms happening all at the same time, a lot of improvising collectively. And then the second page is very, very sparse. And there's like just this beautiful open chord that we're all playing. And there's this trumpet line, right? And we all see it. And we know exactly, we know how it goes. And there's a trumpet player in the group, Andrew Velez. Great trumpet player, great person. And so we're all playing this chord, and Wadada looks at Andrew and he says, "Okay, play the melody." And Andrew plays this melody beautifully. It's this incredible melody. And so like we're expecting to move on to the next page. And there's this moment where we're just holding this beautiful chord, and Wadada holds up a finger and he goes, and he gets his trumpet out and he's holding his trumpet and he just waits. And then he plays one note of this melody, and he's like this. That's what he says. He goes, like this. And he plays one note on the trumpet, and everybody in the ensemble starts to tear up. And like we all feel it. Yeah, like I said, it's gonna make me cry. and we all feel it. And he plays that one note, and he puts his trumpet down, and he wipes a tear away from his eye, and he plays the line again. And we lost it. We all just like started to cry, because at that moment I realized that what I want to do in my life is I want to be able to play one note the way that Wadada plays. And I haven't done it yet, but I hope to. And since that day, like, it's been my focus, it's been my mission to be able to play one note with the ability to make people feel. So yeah, that was my experience, my first experience working with Wadada. And then I was fortunate enough to work with him 2 other times. And then I have, it's like my big thing for 2022 is I'm recording an album with him and doing a week of master classes and performances. So Wadada is, yeah, very, very important to me. Yeah. One note, man. That's all it took.
Oh,
that's all it took.
Yeah, that's incredible. And when, when somebody like that, when you're around somebody like that, it's like their presence is encapsulated in the sound. Like they're very spirit. And to me, man, that is the most powerful, like, earth-shattering, like, thing. And I completely get where you're at. And I feel the reverence in talking to you, about that. Yeah, that is ridiculous.
It was deep, man.
Yeah.
It was, it was deep. That so at the end of every week there's a concert in the faculty play, and so the whole faculty's up there, and Wadada doesn't play at all through the whole thing. Like, he plays some melodies and stuff, but he doesn't solo. And then on the last song, the crowd is filled with a bunch of people, like, hoping to hear some, like, spang-a-lang and jazz, and they're not getting it. And so it's like a pretty like low-key audience. In the last song, like, they're playing in Vijay Iyer, who's the now he's co-director, he was the director at that point. He's playing, and he looks at Wadada and he goes, "Okay, go for it." And Wadada plays a solo that is so out. Like, it's so into outer space. He is like, it is, you're seeing the solar system in what he's doing, it's like, it's next level. And he finishes this solo, and the crowd went ballistic. And that's when I realized, I'm like, it's not about the material, it is about the way that it is presented. And if you present it in a way that makes people understand that you love what you're doing, they're going to appreciate it. They might not know what it is, but they are going to appreciate the fact that you are creating something that will never be heard again. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. And with the, I think so many times we have there's a quote, and I won't say who said it, but, but it's that somebody said that jazz is like a beautiful buffet, like providing a beautiful buffet for people who only want McDonald's. And yeah. And when I think about that quote, I think I was like, at first I was like, oh, okay, so does that mean I need to, like, water down what I'm playing and water down, like, what I'm doing, and is that, the approach? But yeah, what I've learned over the years is, like, playing what you're playing with sincerity and honesty is the most important element, I think, in any musician. And hearing you say that and hearing you talk about and tell that story reminds me of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about, Jordan, I think about when you were working on, you had recorded I Am Not a Virus. And again, another PSA here, not paid to say this. Everybody should pick up Jordan's record, I Am Not a Virus. It's incredible.
Thanks.
You want to talk about humility. in the form of sound and reverence for something so powerful and so moving as one man's voice for civil rights. Check out "I Am Not a Virus" because it's a poignant and needed record. So when Jordan was when you were recording the record and you sent me takes, do you remember what you asked me? You were like, "Will you listen to this and will you tell me if it's good?"
Yeah, I think I said that. Yeah, I remember saying that. I was in a weird headspace in that, and it was such a it was like I felt like a hurricane had just gone through my body.
Yeah.
After I got done recording that. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, you asked me, is it good? I was like, oh, I'm not going to answer that question, but I'll throw you some curveballs. And then you started talking to me about saxophone sound and how, like, recording saxophone sound and mixing saxophone sound. Because I don't know, whatever. You didn't need my advice, but it's fine. But you remember, I asked you a question. Do you remember what the question was when you were talking about saxophone sound?
I don't.
I asked you if it sounded like you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Does it sound like the way that you hear yourself in your head?
Yeah. And you said? What'd you say?
I think I said not yet, or something like no.
You did. I was like, not yet.
I don't think it sounds that way yet.
And it does now, doesn't it?
Yes, actually it does. Yeah.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And that, like that's it. Like that's, I don't want anybody to lose, and this is like as teachers, as educators, it's sort of like, this is sort of where we're going. We're like in this social media bonanza of, let's put as like much content as we can into this 17 seconds so that everybody knows that I'm really good at what I do. Instead of being like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yes, I do.
Not for me. People can do it. Totally awesome.
Yeah.
But as educators, like, it is our job not to teach musicians and to teach creative individuals how to be the best at whatever it is that they want to be. It is our job to teach them to be the best version of themselves. And if that is through music, that is through music. If it is through activism, it is through activism. But it is simply just giving them the ability and giving them the space and the safety to be themselves. And I feel like you and I have very similar backgrounds in teaching. And I think that is why we are the way we are, and why we are doing what we're doing, and why you wrote "I Am Not a Virus," and why I wrote "Stillness," and why we continue to not be status quo. Why it's like, yeah, you finished that record. What are you doing now? You just finished a record. You just released a record. What are you doing right now? You're probably writing another record.
Yeah, I got back into the studio after the events of March 16 and threw down a couple of things with some people I really care about and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
There's a story that needs to be told, and it's the story of you.
I sometimes I wonder, when we talk about telling our stories and when we talk about really like saying something through music and I mean really like actually saying something, sometimes I feel like we search for that. Like I feel, when I look back at the record, I'm like, okay, well, is that me? I feel like I was searching the whole time. Like, I feel like I was searching for it. I never really felt like it was ever a thing where I was like, oh yeah, cool, here it is. And to me, that keeps me really interested. And I hear, so many records, and my students show me music all the time. You know, they're always just like, hey, have you heard this?
Mhm.
And, you know, depending on what this is, it's a lot of different things. But I mean, I think about that, you know, because, I mean, there's a this that gets you like 17 million followers on Instagram.
Mhm.
But there's also a this that like makes you feel fulfilled inside your heart.
Yeah.
You know, there's a this that, you know, feeds your soul or whatever. And to me, it's a tough journey to be after the first thing, like, or the second thing, the not the 17 million Instagram followers thing, the feeding your soul kind of a thing, because I'm reminded continuously that it's not always, it's not always easy, and people don't always get it. Like I read something that somebody wrote, for example, about I'm Not a Virus, and I was just like, I mean, hey, buddy, you kind of missed the point. They were like, why are there, you know, like two or three consecutive ballads on this record? And I was like, that's where the journey's going. Like, that's literally where it's, okay, whatever. Like, you know, and so I'm reminded that, like, it's not always the easiest path. And, you know, I admire you so much for taking that with Stillness and with, you know, your future projects. It's just I think it's a great reminder to have people in your life like that who remind you of, you know, what it is about, to say, all right, cool, you know, here we are, and here's the thing that we're going for, and we'll never truly arrive, but at least we're searching, at least we're on the path.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
That is 100% exactly right. You know, it's not, you know, we can only do what we can do. You know,
Yeah.
we can only, that's such a cop out. That's such a cop out statement. Oh, yeah, it's not what I mean, but it's like, that's the statement that works. It's like, it just sounds so hippy dippy. You know, it's like very esoteric, but we are all, you know, we are all one, man. We are in this together, and we all have something special. We all have something unique, and finding the answer is not unique.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Searching for the answer is what makes us unique.
Mm.
And that's, again, you know, comes back to Wadada. You know, he was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and then got all the Guggenheims and all the grants, and the downbeat musician of the millennium, and you know, Jazz Times trumpet player of the decade, and all of these things.
Yeah.
You know, all, like, he got the Pulitzer nomination, and then he got all of these things, and then has just like spiraled. And he said, and so you read interviews, and they're like, well, what are you going to do now? And he's like, I've been doing the same thing my entire life.
Yeah.
And now I'm 73. So I'm going to keep doing exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah.
My question for you is, where have you been?
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
This is like 10 Freedom Summers. I was writing this in the 60s.
Yep.
Where was my Pulitzer then? You know,
Yeah.
Where was my Pulitzer in the 70s when I was writing 10 Freedom Summers? I was writing it in the 80s. Where's my Pulitzer? You know, I was doing The Bell. Where is my Pulitzer?
Yeah.
And he's like, it doesn't matter. I just did what I believed in, and I'm still going to do what I believe in.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. And and he got nominated for a Pulitzer. If I don't get nominated for a Pulitzer, it's fine. But I'm going to make sure that every step of the way, every moment of my life is going to be spent doing something that I believe in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We got a question in the chat. This, I think, is from my friend Kevin. And Kevin says, do you see education as the only means in which the music is transmitted to the next generation? Seems as if jazz is thriving more in institutions than in the community. Kind of a loaded question.
Wow. Kevin, if that's you, doozy. You go first so I can copy your answer. No, okay. Do you see education as the only means in which this music is transmitted to the next generation? Maybe using the word education sets that one up. Do you see education as the only means in which this music is transmitted to the next generation? Yes. I do, but not. Yeah, I do. But I also think that, like the way that it was originally passed through, the oral tradition, I believe that's education. We're teaching people through rote, we're teaching people through song, through sound. So I believe that that's education. So yes, I do believe it is how it is transmitted. It seems as if, I don't know if that answers that question. That's really hard, man. I'm not that smart. This guy's the doctorate. It seems as if jazz.
The doctorate.
Yeah.
The doctorate, man.
It seems as if jazz is thriving more in institutions than in the community. I would agree with that, and I feel like that fundamentally needs to change. Unfortunately, not to say that institutionalized jazz isn't a good thing. I feel like the jazz institutions are doing their communities a disservice when you can go to a world-renowned school and not have a gig in the community. Because I feel like you don't learn, you do not learn this music by sitting in a classroom. You learn it by performing. You learn it by standing on the bandstand and getting laughed off when you miss the bridge of Autumn Leaves or whatever the case may be. I mean, I didn't really start learning tunes until my second year of my master's degree. And I learned them because my buddy Alex Levine got us a duo gig that was 3 hours long. And we had to play standards, and he never wanted to repeat a standard every week. And so here I was I'm like, okay, so how many standards do I need to learn a week? 75? What? Because he'd be like 2 choruses each, but it made me learn my standards. It made me learn that music, and I learned it all on piano so that I could remember it. But I learned them by performing them. Like, I did not learn them by sitting in a chalkboard with a teacher. I learned it from listening to the records, and I feel like that's something that we need to not really get back to, but I feel like it's something that should really be fostered in our institutions. So I agree with the second statement, but I also agree that our institutions need to do more. Why can't an institution get a gig for their students?
Yeah. And of course, he's saying, do you think we should bring more of the community to the institution?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like it's this idea of like a big old circle, it's a big old ball that we all go in. We're like, whatever, that's very much a Nicholism right there. Sorry.
Never apologize for sharing a Nicholism
in
a space where I'm present. So
yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
I do believe that, I think everybody needs to do their part. It's like the institution needs to bring the community in. The community needs to bring the institution in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was weird being at U of M and going somewhere else for a gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no gig in Ann Arbor, and you have like literally the greatest, like one of the best universities in the world, and it's like, no thanks, they play a little loud.
Yeah. I know that.
Yeah. So I feel like everybody needs to do better. And that's forever going to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right on. Man, this has been great. Unfortunately, I'm super old now, and so it's going to be the time quickly when I start turning into a pumpkin. But man, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jordan.
Your candor, your just your authenticity as a person. I think every time I talk to you, regardless of whether or not it's being recorded or whatever, it's just a really special occasion because I know that like everything that I'm getting is 100% unfit. And this is Kevin laughing at me calling myself super old. um, it, uh, and he says, what does that make me? Anyway, I know it's always going to be a special occasion and that it's just going to be like, it's going to be real, and I so, in a world that is repeatedly full of things that are so artificial, that realness is so refreshing. So, thank you again for your time, for what you've shared with our audience. Man, it's just, again, so special to have you.
Oh, thank you, Jordan. Thank you, West Michigan Jazz Society. It's a real pleasure to just, I don't know, think that somebody wants to hear what I've been doing. I don't know, I'm just up here doing what I do. And I'm glad that people don't forget about me. But thank you, Jordan. Thank you for, again, PSA, if people aren't following Jordan on all the Instagrams and the Facebooks and things and seeing what he's doing for Hope College and for the community, you want to talk about bringing community and the institution together, like look no further than Jordan. So thank you, Jordan, for like everything that you're doing for the music, for the education, for the lineage, for your students, for, the marginalized, for everything. You really have become an amazing beacon for the world.
That means a lot. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Hey, first of all, your dad's here. Hey, what's up?
There it is. Hey, Dad.
And lastly, everybody, there's a link now in the chat somewhere, or some sort of chat thing, the comments, to the record, to buy Stillness. I still go back to this record and just listen to it and feel, a lot of things. But I just wanted to kind of put like here's the link. There it is. Check it. It's a great record, and I really, really love that stuff. And oh, hey, what's up, Dan Grazer?
Dan Grazer, what up? Look at this.
Oh, hold on.
Hey, look at that. I'm still on page 1, and you didn't autograph it, but it's fine.
Yeah. Right on my music stand. Our institution has a copy. Terrorizing my students daily. Love it. Absolutely love it. Right on, Dan. Hey, Dan, thanks for tuning in. And beautiful stuff. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great night. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you.